Okie dokie. Hello. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I don't know about you guys, but here in St. Louis, it is a beautiful, beautiful day. I'm excited for some spring weather. Hope you guys are all experiencing the same. Today, I want to run through a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First is that this webinar is being recorded. We will send you a copy of the recording and a handout that Greg has prepared following the webinar. You'll get that emailed to you. It'll probably be tomorrow morning. And second is Q&A, questions. Greg loves questions. We will be taking questions all day today. There is a button on your screen that says Q&A. Press that button, type in your question. We will read it aloud for the group. We will not use your name. We will not use your name when we read that question. You're also welcome to use the chat function today. I'll be monitoring both the Q&A and the chat function. So if you want to get us a message, send it that way. With that, it's a great pleasure today to welcome Greg Martinelli. Greg runs Ag Sales Professionals, a training and coaching service for sales professionals and sales managers. He has spent the last 30 years developing sales teams across the Midwest. His personal mission is to make you the best salesperson or sales manager you can possibly be. And seeing the need for a new approach to developing sales teams, that's when he launched Ag Sales Professionals. So we've worked with Greg for a couple of years now. We love him. He's a great speaker. We're so excited to have him. Greg, take it away.
Thank you so much for the kind words, Alex, and thank you for the EDA for putting this together and bringing the message to the members. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and get us jumping in right away. And so what I'd like to do is start off with a really positive message and a little bit of an upbeat and say that it's happening soon. We're going to be back in front of live audiences. Maybe it's a hybrid version of that, which is a few people in the audience. But sooner or later, we're going to be out from behind these little cameras and be in front of live audiences. And so hope to see everybody out there. I think these are some from either a year ago, well, more than a year ago. Some of them are almost 2 years ago now, but we're going to be back out there soon and we're going to be enjoying ourselves. And hopefully that's not in the near too distant future. Before we get started on the poll, I'm going to ask you for some information, but I want to talk to you about what we're going to cover here in the next 58 or whatever minutes we got left. And my presentation is about 45, and then we got some time for question and answer. But what we're going to cover here is this. When you're given a territory or you're hired on as a salesperson, specifically in agribusiness, you're given directions like go out and sell in, outside those doors, go sell in the county, or you're like myself and I was given the state of Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, maybe South Dakota. If you'd like to go out there, just let us know if you're going to cross the Canadian border. And I realized that I could be very ineffective and very inefficient with my time and how I organize myself. And so I put all of the best into today's presentation on the 10 ways to be more effective at managing yourself when you're out there. And it's tough because we go out there and we don't know exactly where to go, where to spend our time, and we can't be told exactly how to do that. So today we're going to cover some concepts, and I hope you achieve some. But I do want to get some information from you. So Alex is going to put a poll up there. Just click on there, and I called it "What are the most inefficient uses of your time?" In other words, what burns up more of your time? What would you consider the biggest waste of your time? Just click on. You can click on multiple ones that you can put up there. So I'll give you a minute to click on those. Alex, I'll rely on you to let me know. I can't see on my end of them coming in, but I'll let you let me know when those are.
Yeah, it looks like we still are getting a few trickling in. Leave it up for another 15 seconds. Get your selections in.
You'll notice I don't have sales training up there because I know that's not how you would consider yourself wasting time. So,
all right, I am going to go ahead and share the results, Greg.
Excellent. Email, a big one. Filling out reports, entering information in CRM. Not a lot of things up there that are actually doing our jobs. These are things that are burning up our time. Internal company meetings. Perfect. We are going to operational tasks, delivering product. Excellent. So we're going to address a bunch of those today. kind of an even split across the board. So that's cool and interesting. Go ahead and you want to pull that off. I want to continue to share my screen. All right. When you think about what you do as a salesperson, what we do as an employee, and even if you're an independent contractor and you own your own company, you trade time for compensation. Now, we don't punch a clock typically. So, what we do with that time is extremely important. As I mentioned in the beginning, nobody tells you, go here, go here, go here, and do this. We have to figure that out. Do we spend time in out east, out west, north, south? Do we spend time with current customers? Do we spend time prospecting? Where is the best place to use our time? The better managers we are of that, the more return we get, the more revenue we make, and the more we conquer our big objectives and our goals. And so I want you to really understand the importance of what this is. It's not about, so a lot of times when we get into this time management subject, and there's a lot of people out here that talk on it and then preach these effective, and sometimes we get the wrong opinion of that. We label that maybe as what do they call that? OCD or ADA, some kind of genetic thing that people that are overly organized have some kind of problem, that most people are disorganized. We actually kind of laugh about it. We'll talk about the importance of not having that view and actually spending time doing what you need to be doing. So now here's a good example. If this resembles what your car might look like, when I put this up on the screen in workshops, everybody, you always get a few chuckles. And so today we're going to talk about the fact that going from the car that's on the left, I get that might be us, to the car that's on the right, or the pickup that's on the right, may seem like something that's not possible for us to do. But I will tell you this, having an office like the one on the left is not genetic. And having an office like the one on the right is not some chromosome in your body that says, I'm just not organized. And I will tell you that the whole purpose of this is not so that you can be organized like me or be organized like somebody else in your life. It's not organized to be organized. It's organized so that you can spend more time doing this, because this is what we think generates revenue. Everything that you put on that poll said that these places out here selling equipment, being in front of customers, was where you wanted to be, because everything else was labeled sort of like as it burning up your time, all the office stuff. So having an office like that versus the one on the left versus the one on the right is going to prevent you from getting out there and doing what you need to do. It may not prevent you from getting out there, but when you do get out there, you won't be organized and have everything that you need with you. So we're going to talk about that. So what are we going to do in the next 48 minutes, or what do we have left? We're going to talk about, we've already talked about the importance of time and how critical that is for salespeople. And we're going to go through the top 10 ways to be more effective, how to remove time wasters, and then how to implement these. Now, I'll tell you, if we were all in front of if we had an audience, I'd say raise your hand if you went through the Franklin Covey Planner School. Now, this was back in the 90s, and I'm sure they maybe had it in the 80s, but in the 90s, we all went through Planner School, and there was an elaborate system of checks and little signs and acronyms and symbols. It was very difficult. And the Franklin Planner of today is CRM. It's Salesforce or whatever CRM tool that's out there. And some of them are extremely complex, and they get explained in complex to show all the features and benefits. Here's the deal. In the speed of life, as a salesperson, as an equipment sales or whatever you're selling, with a big geography and a lot of driving, you're a busy person. You need to have ways that you can, I call them field expedient, that's an old Army term, field expedient methods that you can implement these and use them in real life. Not all of us can sit around and fill out everything that goes into a planner and have all these little check marks and color code it all. Some can, some can't. Most of the time we can't, because we tend to spend more time in front of customers. So I want to bring to you easily implemented methods that you can take into the country. And then some of these I've been using for 20 plus years to keep myself organized. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is a little thing called the change model. If you're not familiar with that, and this is important, because everything we do, when we start talking about becoming more effective and efficient with your time and your organizational skills, I'm asking you to change. When I do sales training, I'm asking you to change. When you go out and sell a customer, you're asking them to do something different, buy something different, buy from a new supplier. And I think it's important for us to understand the psychology that goes behind change management. And if you've never been exposed to that, there's a whole science and whole industry. I think it's called Six Sigma that goes through that. I'm just going to show you one little snapshot of that so that you understand how that you can turn this information and take it into the field and actually use it and implement it and make those habits stick and not just be, well, that was a nice hour and now I'm going to go right back to the regular part of my life. All right, let's jump into the 10 steps. Step number 10 is small steps. This is extremely critical to understand. My first week in sales, this is 20 whatever years ago. My first week, I went to the national sales meeting, 400 salespeople sitting in the auditorium. The president's up there. There's great speakers. They hired in these keynote speakers, wonderful things. And then they start in on the list like they always do. And they start introducing the top 10 salespeople in every category, total dollars, total units, total new dollars, all these categories. And they're winning prizes and they're getting computers and they're getting all these things and checks and all this. And I'm sitting there in the audience looking at that thinking, I cannot believe how much these folks have sold. There's no way. And I started looking at my territory and I had my reports and I thought where I'm at to get to where they're at is almost impossible. It's a journey of 1,000,000 miles and there's no way. It might as well just say, hey, I'm going to fly my plane to the moon. It's not going to happen. How is that going to happen? It's little steps. And all of you have been given a yearly goal. Typically in our businesses, we sit down with our manager and we're given the yearly goal. And that yearly goal might be go out and capture 20% market share in Macon County or, sell 25 new units. That's huge. That's a thing that we might put on our to-do list. And you might take that little to-do list and you put it on your computer just like I did or tape it to the side so that you see it every day. The struggle is that seems so far away that we can't get there. And the struggle is we keep looking at it and we keep procrastinating. I got to do that, but then all the speed of life happens. I got a complaint. And as a lot of salespeople tell me, I want to do all that stuff, Greg, but then my day just goes to heck. And I'm like, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to make small steps. What can you do in the next 30 days? If you're going to conquer that, what can you do in 30 days? What can you do in 60 days? What can you do in the next tomorrow for 15 minutes each day? What could you contribute? And I got a real interesting story about that. I had on my 2 years ago, I had on my to-do list, write a book. And I looked at it all the time. And I had all kinds of articles and podcasts that I could form into blog articles I could form into a book. I just didn't get around to putting it all together and doing it because I looked at it and then I had all the speed of life. And so I was coaching with a lady that does this. That's her job. She coaches being more efficient. And she said, Greg, what could you do every single day? She said, could you spend an hour a day doing that and then just let it alone and go on with the rest of your day? I said, that's no problem at all. I can do that. So come back a month later into this association meeting and we're talking. She says, how'd that go? I said, nah, it didn't happen. I just can't spend an hour a day. She said, what about 15 minutes? And I thought, okay, you cannot tell me that you cannot take 15 minutes out of your day and dedicate it to one of those big goals. She said, just take 15 minutes. That's literally the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. And you think about it, most of us spend 15 minutes, turning the news on and seeing what's going on or any of those activities, having a cup of coffee, a soda, a cigarette, whatever you're going to have. Most of us spend that kind of time. And you certainly can too, taking 15 minutes a day. And as you do that every single day, that little bit builds up. And what ends up happening is I start taking that 15 minutes and just like this, that's that first step. The first step is the big one. Once you take that 15 minutes, all of a sudden that turns into 30 minutes or an hour. And the book got finished. And I will just tell you, it was a very effective way. But I never would have done it had I just left it on the side of my computer, taped up there as one of my big objectives. Okay, number 9, agendas, checking in and the weather. This one is an absolute pet peeve. If you've listened to any of my stories or my articles and all that, you will know that I write frequently about quit talking about the weather and start selling something. And the reason for that is we too often, I get it, we have to socialize. We have to connect with our customer when we meet them. The better you are at turning that social discussion, the faster you get that social discussion over with and onto the agenda for the purpose for why you're standing in front of that customer, the better, the more you're going to sell, the more you're going to get done. I've seen sales calls that go on for an hour, and 45 minutes was talking local politics. Now, I get it that that's fun. And if you've got all the time in the world and you've got all the sales in the world, keep talking all that. That's fun. It's interesting. It's exciting. The problem is we think that that's connecting tighter to our customer. A little bit of it is, but too much of it, it should not be 50% of your sales call. So have an agenda. Now, I'm not talking about having a written agenda typed up like you might have for a board meeting. I'm just saying have an idea for why you're going out there. At a minimum, I would write stuff in a book. I could, in my little binder, I could refer to it and say, hey, there's a couple of things I was going to talk to you about here today. As you get into the discussion, weather is important. We're in farming. It's an outdoor sport. And so weather is important. Weather here is important. I've gotten into conversations about weather other places that don't have anything to do with this farm. It drives me crazy. Is it fun? Is it interesting? Not really, but I guess for those folks it was. Did it accomplish anything? No. How about start asking some good questions on how you can help them and how you can understand what they're doing in their operation? Get on with the call. So number 9, be more efficient. Start having an agenda in your head at a minimum, or put it on in handwritten on your little notebook that you take out there for your sales call. All right. With this, I'm probably going to lose all my audience, and that is the dreaded CRM. If you're not familiar, that is called the Customer Relationship Management Tool. Salesforce is the big one, but there's a lot of them out there. There's some very specific ones for agribusiness, some for seed and some for agronomy. And there's just great ones out there. Now, I will tell you this, there's a lot of hatred of CRM. And I will tell you, you see this lovable characters here. Of course, they're driving their car. Well, these guys had a problem. And this is going to be an analogy here. And that is having CRM is like driving your car with a dashboard. Now, these guys had a fire and they burned up all their dash dials. So they drove their car without dials. And you can drive a car without a dashboard. My dad still hand calculates his gas mileage. I'm like, Dad, there's a gauge right there that tells you exactly how much gas is in your tank and how many miles you've gone. I mean, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? But he loves to do that. And you too, you can too. You can run your territory without gauges. And that's what it looks like. CRM is literally just a tool for managing a dashboard of information of your, it's just an electronic filing cabinet. That's really all it is. And the day that I realized that there was dashboards in there, when it first came out, it was just put all your information in there about what you did. And that was kind of a waste, it felt like a waste of time because I already had the files, I already had all that information. But then I soon realized how you can toggle reports out of CRM. And that's when, and these are just fictitious charts that don't actually mean anything. But when you start being able to put information in there that you can toggle out of there, and I call it toggleable. It's not a real term, but it means that I can take and pull out people that have acreage of certain sizes, or they have crops that they're growing of certain ones, people that have grain in their bin and they're looking for a certain price as a grain originator salesperson that I was, or for feed, the number of livestock. And I've got certain characteristics, those people that buy from a certain competitor. All these dashboard dials was like driving your car with the cockpit of an airplane in front of you. And it's extremely effective at managing. I know now, can I do it without it? Sure. We did it for many, many years. And we're probably still doing it in some cases, but don't fight it. I know that that's a real sore point for sales teams, and they struggle with adaptation rate. It's the number one problem with putting a CRM program in after you get past the fact you tie your data to it. The number one problem is getting sales team to adapt to it. I'm here to preach to you. It's effective as soon as you start understanding how you can pull information out of there and utilize it to sell better and more effectively. All right. A lot of you put email down there, and I am a big believer in this. This is interesting for those of us that came through the email era before and then during the launch of it and then now. It was a very effective, efficient tool in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, somebody started inventing these things called PDL, a distribution list, personal distribution list. And so everybody in accounting was on one, and everybody in sales and everybody in marketing, and then there was one for the whole company. And all of a sudden, everybody started clicking all of those and sending us emails we don't need. And then, of course, we got social media marketing coming through email, and we get bombarded. And I've seen people just burn hours and hours. And I just want to give you one quick tip on managing that here today. And that is get effective at getting your inbox empty and cleared out. And the reason for that is so that you don't miss the important emails. And I'll tell you who important emails are from: customers, your boss, and anybody that reports to you. Those three are top priorities. And I'm sure that you know that, and that's how you focus your time. And a lot of the ways to do that, and then after that, it's having access to all the other information that comes down your through your email. And so one of the ways to do that is be very good at hitting delete. And don't delete my emails, but being very good at hitting delete and unsubscribing. Get off those emails. And so one of the techniques that I promote very heavily is the use of folders. And it's very simple. You go up on your top bar and there's a little button that says folder. Click new folder and put it in there. And so when you start organizing your emails by folder, hey, I got this piece of information. I'm going to stick this over here. You got a folder for customers. You put customers, and then under that, you have subfolders for customer Jones and Smith and all that kind of aspects. It's a way for you to access that information. The other tool that I love to use in there, and that is the search button. And a lot of people sort it by, they'll have folders by who the senders are. I'm not a real big fan of it, but if that works for you, but some way of having access to that information that, hey, I don't need to read this now. I can throw it in a folder. When I need it, I'll go back to it, or handle it once and get rid of it, or delete it and don't read it, or unsubscribe, or get off the PDL. I sent notices to several of my internal, I work for a company, sent notices, hey, I don't want to be on this PDL. I do not want a daily update from you on what the holidays are. When I was in a big company, we would get a daily update on the holidays all over the world. Don't need to know that the office in whatever country is closed today. So get off of those. 7.5. This is the other half of Outlook, and that is the calendar. And this one here is extremely helpful. I've worked with several salespeople that said, I can't believe I didn't do this. So if this is redundant and you know how to do this already, I know you know how to do it, but I don't know if you know how to use it, or you're thinking of using it this way. And that is using the meeting, using the Outlook calendar as a meeting planner, or a activity planner tool. And so what I realized is that I had this long to-do list, and it's just like anybody, I've got my binder and I've got all my to-do list stuff, but I got to go back and I got to keep looking at that, right? I got to look at that. What am I going to do today? What am I going to do today? Well, I figured out, why don't I do this? Because sometimes I'm in my office, sometimes I'm on the road, sometimes I'm in the airport, and I don't exactly have my to-do list in front of me. So I realized I can just put it in here as little reminders on my calendar. So you go up there and you click new meeting, and you click call Greg and put the phone number. This is really important, is you put the phone number right in the location. And then down below, you put in there what you're going to talk to them about. And if you're a very, very busy person and you drop the ball all the time, as you don't remember where you're supposed to be or who you're supposed to call or getting back to someone, be diligent. As soon as you get the task, put it on here. And you put that in there, and then up in the top right, you can see that I've got something, I got circled category. You can make that little invite yellow or blue or red, and you can have your own little coloring system. This is mine. You can see this is what I put in there. And I put it in there from 8 to 8. That way it doesn't take up any time. Like, I don't put it in there. It normally takes a half an hour. So I put it in there from 8 to 8. That way, if you're on one of those shared calendars and somebody can see that whether you're busy or not, this just shows up as no time at all. So you're not busy, because that's not really, you aren't busy. You're going to make that call. And what the really cool part about that is that 15 minutes prior to that call, I get a little notice. Well, we all know this. We get a little reminder. Hey, I'm supposed to call Greg. And I can literally, if I want to do a call right then, it wasn't supposed to be exactly at 8 o'clock. I put a little reminder. I can hit that blue 608-751 number and it'll dial. So if I'm driving down the road, I safely hit that number as long as I'm hands-free. Or if I'm walking through an airport or wherever I'm at, if I look at that 15 minutes prior and I'm in the checkout line at a grocery store or at a restaurant and a drive-through line, I know I got 15 minutes. I can pull my car over and get someplace quiet, because I got to call this customer back. This is when we agreed to call. But you'd be amazed at how you will impress people at your follow-up rate when you start utilizing this tool. And then if you really wanted to go in there, you're like, I don't remember who Greg was and why I was even going to call him, which has happened to me, happens to me a lot. Down below it says, talk to him about coaching. Perfect. Absolutely saves you from ever having to remember it, prevents you from dropping the ball. The most important thing is that you don't hit that little button that says snooze, because when you hit the snooze, dismiss. please hit the snooze. If you hit dismiss, it goes away and does not come back. And more than likely, you're going to get busy and you won't call back. So hit snooze and it'll come back up 5 minutes and come back up if you're really busy, and it'll catch you up. So with that, I just want to make sure we don't have any questions coming in, because I've been kind of going pretty fast here. Alex, are we doing good on questions?
No questions yet, guys. Just remember, press that Q&A button and type it in, or feel free to use the chat function.
Perfect. All right, we're gonna keep rolling. Number 6, seasonality. Now, it is obvious we are in farming. Greg, what are you doing talking to me about the seasonality of farming? Everybody knows we're about ready to get into planning if we haven't already started already. But here's the deal. Not everybody remembers that. I always looked at my role as the salesperson as kind of I felt like the quarterback. I don't know, maybe because I wanted to be in charge. I always kind of felt like the quarterback of what was going on in relation to our customers. And at times I would have to come in and remind our production, or we had a trucking manager, and we had a production manager, and we had an office manager, an accounting manager. And I would have to remind them that, hey, it's November 1st, Thanksgiving is coming up. I mean, you'd think, well, do we really have to tell people that Christmas is coming up? We're going to be closed for 2 or 3 or 4 days, or 4th of July was a huge time for feed, and we would have plant managers who would schedule routine maintenance the week of 4th of July, and I'd go in there like, this is our busiest time. We have to get everything out the door so that when we're closed for that day, we can keep our animals in feed. And the same with goes for you guys. This is planting season, and that the service department is obviously running really hard right now. I mean, they're trying to get equipment out as fast as they can, as fast as it's coming in. It's being sold out on the other side, and it's very challenging right now. So you got holidays coming in. They're busy. Go in there and remind them and let them know that we need to do a little bit of planning. I put on, and this is where I put my calendar invite. November 1st, I had a calendar invite. Sit down and start talking. We have email, just a gentle reminder. Hey, Thanksgiving's coming up. I know, and I was in Wisconsin. That was also opening week of deer season, or the week of deer season. So everybody wanted vacation, and everybody wanted to be home with their family. And I get it, but it's also one of the busiest times of the year. So how are we going to manage this workload schedule? And if they've already thought about it and they tell me to buzz off and leave them alone, fine, then great. We did it. We're going to get through, and you've got a plan. But I can tell you there were more times than not when there was a little bit of reminder that might go a long way. And sometimes I had to remind, hey, you had to pull in maybe your manager, maybe you got to pull in your store manager and say, hey, would you put this meeting together? Because I kind of started talking about it, and I got a cold shoulder about being prepared for the holidays that are coming up. Every year flooding seasons, March and April, or May, generally every year, July and August is drought. How are we going to be planning for that? I was on the many years along the Mississippi River, originating grain into there. It was either a drought or a flood every year. It just doesn't seem to be a normal year. So again, as these timeframes came up, what are we going to do? Are we ready with those capital projects, improvements? Are we ready to serve our customers? All right, last 5 that we're going to go through here. The comfort zone, getting more productive in our territories, is a little bit difficult because we get out in that territory. Like I told you, I was given the whole state, and pretty soon I started developing paths around my territory. I had these little circles that I would run up northeast, and then up northwest, and then up southeast and southwest, and they became a path, and that was making me more efficient. I caught all my customers on there. Problem is that all of a sudden you don't realize that path has moved up alongside of me, and it's now a rut. And it's like, this is what I do because this is where I go. We worked with a company. We ended up merging with a company, and they had customers that they went and saw routinely every week. And I know that you guys don't have maybe customers that you see every week, but start to question, is this a path or is this a rut? Do I really need to go there, or can I challenge that? And we had to challenge them folks to say, hey, what do you do in those, well, that's it. I got my Monday customers, my Tuesday customers, and I can't add any more customers. Like, you're in a rut. You need to realize that this is not just a good way of doing business. You're stuck in this path, in this rut that you think you have to go see. I have to go see these people every week or every month. And we don't challenge the industry standard of how often we need to go see people to be more effective. I think you need to seriously evaluate, what do I do on a routine basis? It's no different than going on a diet or doing time. If you around a production facility, that production employees, they have to take a certain time of the year, or maybe weekly or whatever it is. They have to chart everything that they do by time blocks. And I think that's extremely effective at determining, they use it to determine what they actually do and how they get paid and how to be more efficient at making whatever they're making. But with a sales team or with a sales territory, what you're time blocking doing is trying to figure out, where am I spending my time, and am I stuck in a rut? Am I going places I shouldn't be going, because that's what I've always done before? That's what I've done last year, and we're going to just keep doing the same thing. So evaluate that. Here are a few ways to get out of that rut. Put these together and edit it onto the handout that you'll be getting here shortly. And that's taking a few seconds. This goes for a lot of things when you're trying to make some changes in your selling style. And that is just a few seconds of bravery. Question your fears. If I don't go there, what is actually going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? What will actually, will they quit me if I don't go there this week or this month? And try to challenge that. And if you think that's the case, you might start talking to them about how often and what you do there. And sometimes customers may be like, I just thought you were on your rounds and this is where you should be. Failure is going to happen. You're going to try something new. You're going to get out of that rut and you're going to feel all awkward. You're trying something new. It's not going to feel right. Be aware of that. Try not to just jump right back into the way you were doing it. Give yourself a chance to learn the new way, and don't wait. Take little small steps. And the other effective tool is to tell somebody about it. Say, hey, I want to try this new technique. The more people you will talk to about how you're going to make your changes, the more you will live up. You feel accountable after you tell somebody, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And then you stop doing it the next day. You're going to feel obligated. Like, well, what if they ask me about it? I better keep doing it. So let somebody know about it. Hey, I want to try this new technique and see how it goes. Talk to your other salespeople if you don't want it to be your boss, because you don't want them to judge you or evaluate you. But let your peer know, hey, I'm going to try this. Maybe we can both try it. All right. Effective tool number 4, or tip number 4, make one more call. And this is just a mind trick, is really all it is, on yourself, to do a little more each day. And that is, when you get to that closing time, is that maybe a little bit what you feel like? All of us have kind of a time of day when we start to wind down. It's either 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever the case is. Some of you work really long hours. I get that. And if you're working 10, 12 hours, maybe you don't need to implement this one, because you're already doing this anyway. But that is, if you're typically hitting the wall at that 4:30 time frame, and you're packing up, you take a half hour, put everything together, then you jump in your truck, and maybe this is what it looks like. Just make one more call. Use that calendar invite to put that call when you know you're going to be on your way home. And all you're going to be doing is listen to the radio anyway. You got a 15-minute drive home or half-hour drive home. That is great for making 1 or 2 phone calls. Put the invite on your calendar. It'll pop up on your phone. You can punch it and talk to them on your way home. And if you think about it, there's about 21 working days a month. In any given year, it's about 220, 230 working days per year. So if you did that every day, and I know you're not going to do it every day, if you did, that'd be 230. Now, if you're worth your salt, sooner or later in there, one of those is going to turn into a sale. And I'm sure you are. And so even if you did it half the time, that'd be 100 and some sales calls that you made every year, in addition to what you're doing during the day. Very, very effective way to get a little more out of your day. All right. We're getting bigger and better things and more effective tools. Number 3 is old Nancy Reagan's, I shouldn't say old, say Nancy Reagan's, remember in the 80s, and she told us, just say no to drugs. Well, I'm going to tell you, and this is going to come with a little bit of warning. So don't just run out. Don't quit now, because you need to hear the whole part of this. And that is, I want you to say no to customers. I want you to say no to external meetings, no to internal meetings, no geographically, and no to product lines. I'm going to bring it all back up here and talk a little bit about it, because I know I've got some managers and some CEOs and they're all like, wait a minute, where are you going with this, Greg? I'm going to tell you, if you lost your job tomorrow your boss came in and said, hey Greg, we no longer have you as an employee. You're done. You no longer have an income source. The first thing you would do would be what? You would go home, talk to your spouse, and you would say, we're going to cut spending. We're going to stop spending here. We got limited resources. We're going to stop spending here. The really interesting thing is that there's 3 functions of value: time, money, and then emotional factors. We are very good at, if we don't have money, we know how not to spend money. We can cut expenses. The really interesting thing is we don't do the same thing with time. We leave it up to our to the whim of what to do with our time. And so we have customers that we think we need to spend time with, and we neglect other customers. I'll show you a little bit in the next one how we're going to figure out where to spend that time. So I think one of the first things, and of course there's the old famous quotes from Bill Gates and Warren that talk about Warren Buffett, that talk about the biggest thing that they do. Of course, they're multi-billionaires, but their biggest time saver is saying no to the things that they don't need to be part of, and they don't need to be attending. So this doesn't give you, and I'm going to say this again, this does not give you the right to just say, hey, I ain't going to any of that stuff. I'm just going to sit in my desk, or I'm going to go drive the country and not participate in these. But I want you to challenge when external meetings come up. If it's not geared towards growing your territory and growing your business, then I really question whether you should be doing that. Talk about these with trade shows, with any events that you feel like you're doing that aren't generating the return. I can tell you our marketing budget used to be set, and everybody would be like, let's just do the same thing we did last year. And we would spend it on the same trade shows, and we'd spend it on the same sponsorships. Even though we'd spend it on the same radio ads and same TV ads and the same papers. And we would start to question ourselves at one point when we got through tough times. We had to limit it. I want you to do the same thing with your time. Geographically, where do I get the best results? Where do I get the best return? Where am I getting the most resistance? And where is open geography where I'm not getting that resistance? And then as far as product lines, again, it doesn't mean that you don't sell the compact utility if you're a big tractor salesperson, but it means, where do I spend my time? Where do I focus? And so very important. You can create a lot of extra time by evaluating. And this is where that time blocking comes in. And time blocking, if you're not familiar, it's taking a piece of paper out and just take your week. Just say, last week, what did I do on Monday? By big hour blocks, 2 hours prospecting, 3 hours phone calls, an hour and a half driving, 2 hours doing a demo. Write down what you did the week before. What's amazing is when you start to look back on it and you think to yourself, did I really need to do that? Why was I doing that? Why am I really spending a lot of time on email? How could I get better at that? Call your peers, your boss, somebody that does it really well at, somebody on your sales team, especially if you've got 20, 30 people on your sales team. Somebody has probably figured it out how to do it faster and better. Reach out to them and find that kind of stuff out. All right. I'll tell you this, these next two things are the number one and number two salesperson killer of all times. And I wrote these articles because they're true. I have seen more salespeople end their sales career or have to leave the company because of either being disorganized or calling on the wrong accounts, more so than not closing or not asking good questions or not being able to figure out how to shake hands and say hi and connect or find customers. Way more have I found salespeople have to leave their job or find another company to work for because they were disorganized and couldn't get in front of enough customers, or they were calling on the wrong ones and they just couldn't figure out how to call on the right ones. Now, there's always a few that just couldn't sell, but most of the time people figure that out if they're getting in front of the right customers. So how do we do that? Well, one of the ways, and this is a whole subject unto itself and probably a whole webinar unto itself, and that is customer segmentation. You know, when I talk to sales teams, I start interviewing them when I'm going to do training. I say, well, who do you call them? Well, we call them farmers. And I say, what kind of farm? Well, dairy farmers. And I say, well, these kind of dairy farmers are these kind. These kind of beef operations are these kind. These kind of farmers are these kind. You know, what kind of producers are you calling? And if your operation is geared for the producer on the right and you're trying to go sell the one on the left, that's cool. And if you get the sale, that would be great because they buy a lot. They're big. And I don't know what this is, a 36 or 8 or whatever row planter versus a 4-row. That would be awesome because that would be the biggest sale we ever made. Problem is you're not set up with your company to sell to them. Now, here's the deal. That doesn't mean you won't sell the person on the left, or if you're geared to sell the person on the left, that you won't sell the person on the right. Certainly you will, but that's not where we focus our efforts. That's not how we spend our time. And that's not who I'm calling on. And I always use the example. Once I was working with a salesperson, he was selling feed for a co-op, and they came in because they were having a lot of trouble getting productivity out of their sales team. And so I started doing the interview and I said, tell me a little bit about your customers. And he's like, well, I call on a lot of 2-horse accounts. And I thought to myself, well, I knew how much he was compensated. I knew what he was paid. And I said, do you know how many 2-horse accounts it takes to cover just your salary and your vehicle and your iPad and your phone and your insurance and your, the seminars that you're sent to and all the training that's going on? Do you know how much it costs to, how much you got to sell of those 2-horse accounts? And he said, no, I really don't. And I said, well, you better figure it out before your boss does, because you want to have an answer for that, because it's a lot. And that's some of the things that we have struggles with. It's maybe comfortable to call on those smaller accounts, but if that's not what our store is geared for, then we need to focus on the ones that we're geared for and who we're designed for. And if the other ones buy from us, that's great. And that's how market segmentation really works. Other people can buy from us. It's not that we don't sell to them or that we're rude to them or that we're disrespectful to them, but the focus is the ones on the left, and this one I'm using this as an example, the ones on the left are who we are geared to serve, and that's who we design our products and our programs and our services for. And these are just some ways that you can segment. Like I said, this is a whole, from generational and progressive, traditional, single line, all green, all red, all blue, mixed shed is the other terminology that's used, what segment they are. And these are some of the, by the way, these are some of the dials that can pop up on your CRM tool to make yourself a little more effective in where you're going. All right. Last point, and then we'll open it up for questions for folks, and that is getting organized. This is a life journey. It takes from the day you start your territory until you retire. I hope that you're thinking every day about how can I become more efficient in what I'm doing and where I'm spending my time and my resource, because that's what generates revenue for you and your territory. So how do we get organized? First of all, geographically, I like to use the anchor store concept. When you're in a shopping mall, they have Sears down one aisle and one down one side, and JCPenney's down another, and I don't know, Macy's down another, or whatever. I'm saying names of stores are probably all closed by now. But those anchor stores get you down there, and then you can see all the little shops that are around that. Nowadays, we have Walmart, and outside of a Walmart, there's a whole strip mall of Subways and sandwich shops and haircut places, and those are anchors. The Walmart is the anchor store. So in your territory, when you're out there trying to design and be organized, think of your territory. And I talk to salespeople frequently. And the way that you can kind of manage this, if you're a manager, is look at the mileage and say, well, if I've got, you can see this on the screen, this green territory, the blue purple territory, and an orange territory, and they're all about the same size, maybe one a little bigger than the other. They all should be about the same kind of mileage. And then all of a sudden you'll have one person that's got just sky high mileage, and you talk to them and say, hey, what are we doing? Let me take a look at your day. And you just start asking about where they're going. And pretty soon you'll see they're zinging all over the place. Now, there may be in some specific reason for that. Maybe there was a bunch of breakdowns in the facilities and had to run parts out constantly, or, who knows what may have happened. And I'm not talking about just 1 week. I'm talking about routinely month after month when you see this. But typically it would be one particular territory. And you just had to talk to that person about, hey, how are you managing your geography? How are you getting around there? Because it's pretty expensive use of your time to be driving from one end of it to the other every single day. Getting organized around customers. I mentioned CRM. I think it's great if you have it. If you don't, this little simple tool that's up on your screen, which is a very, very easy way for you to organize your customers. It's simply to know where you need to go each month or where you've been each month, whatever you particularly want to track. And the two columns on the right are probably the most important, as what you did last time and what you're going to do next time. I sort everything by the follow-up date, and same with prospects. Again, I mentioned not dropping the ball. It's extremely important. When we get bigger and we sell more, it's harder to not drop the ball. People ask us, hey, would you give me a price on that? Would you quote me on that? Would you come see me after planting? Come see me before harvest. Come see me if anything comes in that, is what I'm looking for. And to do that, you put it on here. There's an old saying, the faintest of notes is worth the best of memories. And that is absolutely true. You'd be amazed when you look at this routinely and you see that, oh, that's right, I got to get back to them on that price. I forgot to do that. That is a lost sale unless you have some kind of system to track that and take care of it. Paperwork, have everything with you. Collateral handouts. I like to have everything with me. I always was left the house with a positive note. when I made a sales call, I thought if everything goes perfect, I'm going to actually make a sale. So I need to have everything with me so that I'm not going back and getting stuff and bringing it back and having them fill out stuff. I want to do everything right there if they agree at that moment in time. So be organized so you can get out in front of more customers. Before I close, just want to turn it over and see if there's any questions. Alex, anything that came up in the chat?
Yeah, this one says, regarding customer segmentation, do you recommend having different people calling on the right versus left if your company is geared towards both? In our market, the guys on the left trade in the equipment used by the guys on the right, so we have both for sale. Reps are usually organized by territory, and obviously we'll have both types of buyer within the territory. Should there be primary and secondary market reps in the same geographical territory? Tough sell from a sales management perspective.
Absolutely. Perfect question. And this comes up all the time. Should I have people selling all the product lines in one geography to save travel? Or should I segment and have somebody selling compact utility and high power or high level horsepower, big tractors? Or how do we organize this? We also have the split where people can be hunters, where they go out and they just find prospects and get them all set up. And then there's the skinners, the ones that go in and just service current accounts. Here's the answer: yes. Now, when I say that, if you get enough business to support a salesperson in each category. So if you're talking about, I've got so much business of used that's a full-time role, perfect. And I was in that environment. I was in Dairyland, Wisconsin, and I didn't sell dairy feed. I sold retail feed because there was enough of that to support $130,000 of expense, which was not my salary, but it was what it cost about to put a person on the road. And so when we looked at that, we realized, hey, we want to go down that path and we want to build an entire sales team that does that. And so you in your dealerships, you've got the precision ag guys, and then you've got the big tractor sales folks. And if you've got enough of the used equipment or compact, you might have somebody that does that category. So if you have a smaller category, what I would typically do, what we did was do what they did with me. They said, cover the whole thing for the small category. So I went everywhere until there was enough sales down by Chicago, and then we put a guy there. And then there was enough sales up by Green Bay, and we put a person there. And so pretty soon the area that I used to cover is now being covered by 3 people, me and 2 others. And then that little by little became its own sales force. And then we had to mesh. So the answer to that question is, can that salesperson, is there the right? And then the other thing comes, do we have a perfect person for that? So sometimes in the evolution of a business, somebody's like, they're towards the end of their career and they're like, hey, I want to go out and this is all I want to focus on for the next 10 years till this is what I want to really be. And they're perfect for the job. They're like, this person can take off and run with this category. And that's kind of what happened with me. I was a little older in my work years. And so it was a perfect scenario where we could specialize in it. And I think that's the case with this is can you support a person in that role? And it doesn't mean that month number 1 or 3 months in, they're supporting themselves, but I'm talking about, are we going to get on a trajectory and take off with that? So that's kind of my answer. The other thing that becomes difficult is, and I haven't spent as much time in equipment stores to know all the solutions of this, and that is how compensation flows of responsibility for the equipment. In other words, if you have a bad trade-in, does that responsibility of selling that on, right now, it's usually on the responsibility on the person that sold the new piece of equipment has to get the used piece of equipment sold. Kind of their, hey, you don't get a bad trade-in and then leave us with this, and then you go out and sell new equipment. We want you to understand the flow all the way through the system. So if that equitable relationship can be figured out so that you're not, letting them away from that. I mentioned this thing about Hunter Skinner. The struggle with that, the number one complaint of that was the hunters would go out and sign up accounts that weren't any good because they didn't have to, they usually, I sell the dream and you service the nightmare. It was the old saying from the salesperson. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. We're not going to, have you sign up people that shouldn't be a dealer of ours. And then, the other team has to go out there and service it and fire them as a dealer. So that's one of those areas where if you've got it depends on the maturity of your team and how that can be financially managed to compensate their focus. I don't know if that answers that question. I'm certainly glad to take on that. I love talking segmentation because it's a passion. It's so helpful for people, and especially for your sales team and your marketing, for them to know, here's where we go. Here's who we write about. Here's who we talk about. I even get it down into what do they call it? An avatar. Put a name on it. We did that. We very effectively, we put a name and an image. They bought an image of a typical person that this was. And when you went out and you were at a trade show or you were writing marketing material, that's exactly, you would think of that image and you're like, I can write for that person. And it's very helpful. So love to talk about that more if we got more questions on that.
Thank you, Greg. No other questions right now. I just wanted to remind everybody that we are going to be providing a copy of the recording and then a PDF of Greg's 10 steps following today's presentation. So that'll be coming to you tomorrow morning.
And I've got a couple more things, and then we're going to do our poll at the end here.
Oh, yep. Okay. Go right ahead.
No problem. So before I do close, I have a couple more slides I want to tell you about the change model here, but I'd like to have Alex pull up the poll. I'd like for you to take those 10 up on your screen, or the 10 steps that we went through. I actually put 11 on there. Sorry. But I'd like for you to just, which ones were the most effective? Which ones did you, when you heard them, you're like, that's something I really would like to do. I want to implement that in my daily life. If you would just check one or two of those, 3, 4, whatever suits your fancy. Just let me know, Alex, when those kind of taper off.
All right, I'm going to leave it open for a few more seconds. We still got a couple coming in, looks like.
Absolutely. It's always good to know what people resonate with. It's interesting to see what others out there think about this. We had a widespread dispersion across the U.S. That was interesting to see people from out east, out west, a lot of Midwest, obviously. And whenever you can, if you can share that. Excellent. Take my small steps. Perfect. It's awesome. That is great to see. I would somehow, if we can get these out also, Alex, it'd be great to share these, because it's good to know what other people think, that these, these are some of our managers, owners, sales managers, a lot of actual salespeople as well, but it's good to see what others across the business resonated with and what might be helpful. So very good. Perfect. We can close that out and I'll jump into, all right. So the change model, if you're ever familiar with the change management program that's out there, there's a whole science behind it, but I just wanted to make sure and point out something called the change curve. And it'd be very helpful for the group that's on here, because a lot of you have gone through mergers. I went through 7 of them. I always say I went through 7, I survived 6. And it's kind of true, but not, it is. I went through 7 of them. And I decided after the 7th one that I didn't want to move again. And so these were mergers where they'd merge, Wisconsin, Minnesota, then Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota. It was all internal mergers. And every single time we all went through this. And anytime I've tried to do something new and try to change my habits, something I've been doing for a long time, you go through this. The first thing that you do is you're in denial. We'd hear the rumor of the merger and we'd say, or you'd say, I got to go out here and do this. I got to exercise. And what is that? That's crazy. I don't want to do that. Or I got to change my diet so that I don't have to be on cholesterol medicine. And I don't want to do that. And first thing you do is go through denial. Then you're frustrated. You're mad. I just want to do what I was always doing. It's working. Well, maybe not. And then you go down in here into what they call the valley of despair, depression. And so there's a few techniques that you can use to get through that really fast. I used to tell people, get through that so you don't get flushed, because it looks like the pea trap on the bottom of a sink. It's like, hey, get to the other side really quick or you might get flushed out of there. So, and if you're really having struggles, do what Zig Ziglar said, which is speed up the pity party. Complain, get your complaints out there, talk to your peers, whoever, and then get over it. And if you do get stuck down there and you really struggle with it, talk to your boss. They'll probably help you through it. They've got some answers that maybe they can help you with. The same with making changes in your everyday life, or if you've been doing this for a long, long time, it's not easy to change your routine and change some of these steps that you're going to do. Small steps towards the bigger goal is a way to pursue that. So I'll show you some of these pictures here. And that's me on the left in a very unhealthy state, about ready to go on cholesterol medicine. And I said to the doctor, I said, how can I do that? How can I not do that? He said, well, you could lose some weight. And I was like, but I eat so good. I eat at Chinese restaurants and Mexican restaurants. And I heard, I eat a lot of grains like rice. And he's like, have you ever, this is a nutritionist he's telling us to, animal nutritionist. And I was like, yeah, I really never counted it. So I started in small steps. Now, the person on the right is someone that exercises about 2 or 3 hours a day and did an Ironman. The problem is, as I was there, that was about a 6-year journey. There's no way that as I was there, sitting there on the left, 50 pounds overweight, ever imagine myself in the place on the right. And I think the same thing for you. And you're sitting in that audience and you're hearing about all the great things that those other salespeople are doing, or you hear about all these excellent things that are going on and all the sales that are happening and they're not happening for you. Little by little, this was part of my 21-day challenge. And no, you don't get there in 21 days, maybe 21 years, but take it little by little and you can be there. And I'd be glad to help you on that journey. That's obviously what I do for a living, but if not, find a peer, find a coach, find a manager that can help you get there. And those are some ways that you can interact with me and how I work with teams. There's also a free weekly blog. Many of you are on that and hope you enjoy that. I don't overly burden people with email because that's not very effective, good use of time. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Alex. And I want to thank you again, you and the Equipment Dealers Association, for having me on again. I love being on here and hopefully helping bring some of these messages to the equipment stores out there, to the dealers out there, and help them in their selling.
Well, Greg, thank you. As always, we appreciate your time and your expertise and your insights, and you always make our webinars interesting. So thank you for being here. I'm not seeing any questions right now, but Greg's contact information is up on the board. And again, you'll get a copy of these slides or a pared down version of these slides and then a copy of the recording. So Greg's information is available to you. Feel free to reach out to him directly, or you can contact EDA if you have questions or need to get in touch with him. So we will let everybody go. Enjoy the rest of your day. Greg, thanks again.
Thank you.
See you next time.